recording? I check. Alright, we recording. What's up, y'all? It's another reaction video with your boy the God. You feel me? Let's get it. I feel like my energy is so low, but hey. but I got another reaction video, basketball reaction. You know what I'm saying? Got Antawn Jamison. Shout out to forgotten player profiles. I be watching a lot of their videos. He deserve, you know what I'm saying, more subscribers. But subscribe to him, give him some love. So we got Antawn Jamison, over 20,000 career points, but shit, he made the Hall of Fame. Should he? But hey, Antawn Jamison from my state. You know what I'm saying? Charlotte, North Carolina. That's like a couple, like an hour 30 minutes from where I'm from, here in Randolph County. But hey, like, just hearing from him, from my dad, like, I'm a Carolina fan. I mean, I used to, but like, I'm a sports fan in general, but like, I support everybody now. But like, hey, let's just get straight into it, man. Let's get it.
He wasn't the most exciting, and his game wasn't super flashy. But when it came to putting the ball in the basket, Antawn Jamison is one of the most underrated of the 21st century. He was a star at North Carolina and would translate that into being a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, where he would go on to be one of the league's most consistent scorers for nearly a decade and a half. He was putting up big-time stats on bad teams in Golden State, then may have been in a perfect situation during his one season in Dallas. However, that was blown up quickly. He experienced his most overall success with the Washington Wizards alongside Gilbert Arenas and Caron Butler. Yet although Jamison was available, injuries held this team back, as the other two would break down as their time together went on, and the rest of Jamison's years would be uneventful. His best position as their time together went on, and the rest of Jamison's years would be uneventful. His best position was never quite certain, but his shooting ability at his size eventful. His best position was never quite certain, but his shooting ability at his size really helped him exploit mismatches, and he showed throughout his career that he could operate anywhere from being the main option or a sixth man and still give you great production. Unfortunately, he wasn't the same player on the defensive end, which definitely affects his legacy. But Antawn Jamison was still one of the most consistent offensive players of his era, and anyone who scores 20,000 career points needs to get their shine. Let's jog your memory. Antawn Jamison was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, where the hospital would misspell his name on his birth certificate, with his parents never correcting it. As even though he was always referred to as Antawn, there would be confusion when people saw his name for the first time, as the way it was spelled would suggest that it was pronounced Antawn. Jamison would spend his high school years in Charlotte, North Carolina, as a star at Providence High. By his junior year at Providence, he was averaging 20 points and 10 rebounds, with renowned Scott Bob Gibbons comparing his game to UNC and Lakers legend James Worthy. According to Jamison's mother, he started to get major college interest as a sophomore, and once the head coach of local North Carolina University, Dean Smith, came to talk to him, Jamison had all the...
if y'all, you know what I'm saying, from North Carolina, or y'all know about Dean Smith, technically he's one of the greatest coaches in history. Like, the arena is what is named after Dean Smith. The UNC Chapel Hill College. The basketball arena is named after him. I think they named after real, but it's named Dean Smith Arena. But like, Dean Smith really produced some great ass athletes, and so did the man after him, Roy Williams. Yeah, he's one of the greatest.
Made up his mind that that's where he wanted to play, as shortly before his senior season, he would announce his intention to attend UNC. He would then put together a great senior season in '95, averaging 27 points, 13 rebounds, and 4.5 blocks per game.
About it, if y'all don't know who Antawn Jamison is, I feel like Jason Tatum is kind of like a good similarity. It's like how they play the game and everything. Smooth jumper. You know what I'm saying?
As he would be named a McDonald's All-American and North Carolina's Mr. Basketball. So by the fall of '95, Jamison was at Chapel Hill, but he wouldn't be the only great freshman recruit on the team, as the Tar Heels had also gotten a commitment from a wing out of Florida named Vince Carter, and another great forward in Ademola Okulaja. But Jamison and Carter came at the perfect time, as UNC had just seen their star duo of Rasheed Wallace and Jerry Stackhouse leave for the NBA. Yet Jamison and Carter were perfect replacements, even though Jamison originally thought that he would be playing with them, not replacing them. On top of this, the Tar Heels were led by junior guard Jeff McInnes and had another great guard coming off the bench in the sophomore Shammond Williams. After losing so much talent, it looked like this would be more of a rebuilding year for UNC, but Jamison would turn out to be one of the nation's best players even as a freshman. He would get nearly 33 minutes per game, as he would finish second on the team in scoring and first in rebounding, while shooting 62.4%.
Vince Carter, dang, it was seven points per game as freshman. Oh man. Hey man, Jeff Lins, was he a point guard? Hey, 62 straight people was doing just inside post game layups
from the field, as he would even lead the ACC in shooting percentage while finishing third in rebounding. As the freshman forward was named first team all-conference. Jamison's season was great, as he would have 13 double-doubles. Yet at some points, he was criticized by Coach Smith for relying too much on his athleticism for rebounds, as after a January 4th victory over NC State, where he finished with 26 points and 9 rebounds, he would be removed from the starting lineup for a January 6th game versus Maryland. But Jamison would respond by putting up 31 points and 8 rebounds off the bench, while even hitting the game winner off of an offensive rebound. And then on January 17th, he would become the first Tar Heel in over 15 years to have a 20-rebound game, as ultimately North Carolina would finish the regular season at 20-9, but they would lose to Clemson in the conference tournament quarterfinals. However, they would still get an NCAA tournament berth, as they would take on New Orleans in the first round, with Jamison putting up 10 points and 10 boards in an easy win. Round 2 brought Texas Tech, but they would bring an end to UNC's year. Yet Jamison played well, with 16 points and 8 rebounds on 70% shooting, as Jamison's freshman year saw him average about 15 points, 9.5 rebounds, and a steal per game.
Almost a
McInnes was gone going into 97, but Carter and Williams were both now full-time starters, as these two along with Jamison would lead one of the nation's best offenses. As Jamison improved on his output from last year, he would lead the team in scoring and rebounding, while still shooting over 54% from the field, even though he was taking over 4 more shots per game, as he would finish top 3 in the conference in all 3 categories. And would again see himself named first team all-conference, and this conference in all 3 categories, and would again see himself named first team all-conference, and this time a consensus second team All-American. UNC would start the year ranked number 7, yet would lose their first game to Arizona before going on a 9-game win streak. Over their following 8, they would go just 3-5, but would get a win over number 2 Clemson. Then they would win out the rest of the regular season to finish at 21-6. They would then run through the ACC tournament, beating Virginia, Wake Forest, and then Duke, each by at least 10 points, to win the ACC tournament title. And this led to an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament as a 1 seed, where they would have a much better run than last year.
Hey man, okay.
The future of your business is here with Wix.
Okay, y'all. Okay.
The first round would be a surprisingly close game versus Fairfield, as UNC was down by 7 at the half, yet they would come back to win, with Jamison putting up 15 points and 4 rebounds on over 63% shooting. The second round would be an easier defeat of Colorado, as Jamison led all scorers with 19 points and pulled down 16 rebounds, but he would shoot just 7 of 21 from the field. However, UNC was still advancing to the Sweet 16 versus Cal. This would be another close game, but the Tar Heels would get the win, behind Jamison's game-high 21 points on over 53% shooting to go along with 8 rebounds. And now they were set to take on Louisville in the Elite 8, and they would dominate, as all 5 starters scored in double figures, and Jamison would finish with 16 points and 6 rebounds, as the Tar Heels were heading to the Final Four. But this is where their season came to an end, as they would fall to Arizona, with Jamison putting up 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 steals in the loss. But his sophomore season had ended with him averaging about 19 points, 9.5 rebounds, and a steal per game. It was a surprising new era in Chapel Hill, as Dean Smith had unexpectedly announced his retirement months before. Surprising new era, 19 points, 9.5 rebounds,
97
and a
D.
steal per
Smith
game.
retired.
It was a
Okay.
surprising new era in Chapel Hill, as Dean Smith had
98,
unexpectedly announced his
97.
retirement months before the season, leading to assistant Bill Guthridge taking over in '98. The Tar Heels featured a top 20 scoring offense, once again led by their star trio. Jamison was regarded as possibly the best player in the nation and would play as such, as he would lead the team in scoring and rebounding, while averaging a double-double and shooting nearly 58% from the field. And it wasn't just the Tar Heels who he would lead in scoring and rebounding. It was the entire ACC, as Jamison was again named first-team All-Conference, Conference Player of the Year, and a consensus first-team All-American. UNC would start the year on a 17-game win streak, which would get them the #1 ranking in the nation, before an overtime loss to Maryland would drop them to #2. They would then go on another 9-game win streak, which included a blowout win over #1 Duke, in a game where Jamison finished with 35 points. Yet Duke would get their revenge in the final game of the regular season, as UNC would finish at 27-3.
Okay.
They would repeat as conference champs, as after defeating NC State and then Maryland, they would defeat Duke convincingly, giving them an automatic bid in the NCAA tournament as a 1 seed, while featuring the National College Player of the Year in Jamison. The Tar Heels would make quick work of Navy in round 1, as Jamison finished with a game-high 17 points and 14 rebounds. Round 2 would be much closer, as the Tar Heels went to overtime with UNC Charlotte, but would pull away for the win, as Jamison finished with 19 points and 12 rebounds, yet would shoot just 6 of 18 from the field. The Sweet 16 brought Michigan State, and North Carolina would jump out to a big first-half lead and never look back, as Jamison finished with 20 points and 14 rebounds, and they were now gearing up for an Elite 8 battle with UConn. Jamison played great with a team-high 20 points and 11 rebounds, as USC won again to return to the Final Four. But like last year, this would be where their season ended, as they weren't able to come back from a 13-point halftime deficit versus Utah, with Jamison finishing with 14 points and 12 rebounds, yet shooting below 37% for the game. But Jamison's great year ended with him averaging about 22 points, 10.5 rebounds, and a steal per game. Jamison had a year of eligibility left, but Williams was graduating and Carter was leaving early, so Jamison would do the same, as he would forego his senior year to enter the '98 NBA draft. There was a lot of talent in this draft, but at the time there wasn't a consensus #1 pick. Yet Jamison was definitely in that conversation. But although he was Player of the Year, there were concerns coming out around his size, as well as his lack of a polished game.
So let me read this. Number 6, Dallas Mavericks. Antawn Jamison, 6'9", 4 out of North Carolina. Let's start as a showing or showing at #1. But his puffed up height. Maybe plus his 6'7". Very unpolished, but it's hard. What?
The upside he had, he wouldn't be waiting long to hear his name.
With the 4th pick in the 1998 NBA draft,
they go VC right there.
The Raptors select Antawn Jamison
What are they
from
doing
the
here?
University of North Carolina.
So Jamison had been selected 4th overall by the Toronto Raptors, as would seem to be their next franchise player, and his UNC teammate would be taken right after him.
Oh man.
Be their next franchise player, and his UNC teammate would be taken right after him, as the Golden State Warriors made Vince Carter the 5th overall pick. But that would be short-lived.
They traded him. Oh, what? Damn, they traded both of them too. Antawn went to Golden State and VC went to
Metro, get a new
Toronto.
iPhone 12 with 5G. Take amazing pictures and...
Yeah, that's crazy. Back to back.
Toronto has traded the rights to Antawn.
So like now, like what if Antawn would have played at Toronto, and like would they still been good? Or VC still be called half man, half amazing? He'd still be one of the greatest dunkers of all time. Like where Antawn had the same career as he did. Like, hey, crazy.
Jamison to Golden State for the rights to Vince Carter plus cash consideration.
The Raptors and Warriors would swap picks, with the Warriors also sending cash to the Raptors. Reportedly, Raptors GM Glenn Grunwald always wanted Carter, and the Warriors really wanted Jamison. Yet the Milwaukee Bucks also wanted Jamison, and had reportedly had a deal in place with Toronto for a draft day trade. So knowing that they could still get Carter and some extra cash, the Raptors would make the deal with Golden State, as Jamison would be joining a Warriors team coming off a drama-filled season. The '98 Warriors season was completely overshadowed by the Latrell Sprewell PJ Carlesimo incident, and by the end of the year they were 19-63. so hopefully the only way they could go was up in the lockout 99 season. They didn't have much though, as their top scorer was a 33-year-old John Starks. However, they did have some solid youth alongside Jamison in the 5th year Danielle Marshall and the 3rd year Eric Dampier, with Carlissimo still at the helm. In the 5th year Danielle Marshall and the 3rd year Eric Dampier, with Carlissimo still at the helm, the Warriors' top 5 pick wouldn't get as much play as some might have expected. He would come off the bench in the first half of the season and was struggling, as he was putting up less than 7 points per game and only shooting about 38%, as the Warriors were 10-15 halfway through the year. But Jamison would become a starter for the second half of the season and really start to produce with opportunity, averaging over 12 points and 7 rebounds on nearly 50% shooting after becoming a starter, as after hitting double figures 5 times in the first half of the year, he would have double figures in 15 of the 24 games he started. But the Warriors would only go 11-14 in those games to finish at 21-29, and although it was an improvement from last year, they would still miss the playoffs, as Jamison would be named second team all-rookie behind averages of about 9.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and a steal per game. Although the Warriors were a solid defensive team last year, they would act on opportunity to bring in some more defense as well as veteran leadership when they acquired point guard Mookie Blaylock from Atlanta in a draft day trade. Other than that, the team looked very similar, but Jamison would begin the season as a starter and had taken a huge leap in year 2, as over the first half of the season, he would be the team's top scorer and second leading rebounder. And also in that time, after a poor start, Gary St. Jean would replace PJ Carlissimo as head coach. In 43 games, Jamison would record double figures in 38 of them, while also putting up 16 double-doubles, and would even have a 30-20 game on January 25th, when he had 33 points and 21 rebounds on 55% shooting in a loss to Dallas. But not long after that, in early February, Jamison would experience soreness in his left knee, and after missing a few games, it was announced on February 21st that he would need to undergo surgery, which would eventually end his season. And this was unfortunate, as right around the time that Jamison went down, the Warriors had acquired a promising young player in guard Larry Hughes. But Golden State was still only 12-35 after Jamison's last game, and would finish at 19-63 and miss the playoffs, as year 2 saw Jamison average about 19.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. But the 0-1 season is when Jamison would really put himself on the map. The Warriors were now coached by Dave Cowens, who would get a full healthy season out of his young star forward. Unfortunately, the possible Jamison and Hughes duo would hit another snag, as Hughes would only manage 50 games due to thumb and shoulder injuries. The Warriors had also brought in an often injured yet elite rebounder in Danny Fordson via an offseason trade, but a foot injury limited him to just 6 games. And overall, the Warriors just couldn't escape the injury bug, as they had only 4 players appear in at least 60 games. So this meant that Jamison had to do a lot of the heavy lifting on offense.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of similar to Jason Tatum, because Jason Tatum played a 4. He's like 6'8", 6'7". I think he's 6'8". And he plays the game kind of like Antawn Jamison. He's athletic. I don't know about the rebounding, though.
And he would, as he would lead the team on a career-high 24.9 points per game, which would also be a top 10 mark in the league.
He's athletic. He can shoot from anywhere in the court, just like Antawn Jamison. He got a good post game.
And he would also finish first on the team in rebounding, while averaging a career-high 1.4 steals per game. He would only shoot about 44%, but he was really all the Warriors had on offense, and in turn was taking over 22 shots per game. He would hit double figures in 81 games, with the one game he didn't hit double figures in being a loss to the Lakers, in which he was held scoreless after going 0 of 9 from the field. He would have 23 games with at least 30 and 4 games with at least 40, which would include one of the most famous moments of his career, which actually occurred across 4 days and 2 games. The Warriors would travel to Seattle for a December 3rd matchup, and in that game, Jamison would go off for a career-high 51 points on 23 of 36 shooting, as he would only attempt 4 free throws in the game, while adding 14 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks, playing the entire 48 minutes of a 16-point loss. Then in their next game, on December 6th, the defending champion Lakers would come to Oakland, and Kobe Bryant would go off for 51 points. But it would be deja vu, as Jamison would once again put up 51 points of his own, this time on 21 of 29 shooting, with 8 free throw attempts, while chipping in 13 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals, as this time the Warriors would win the game in overtime, with Jamison playing the entire 53 minutes. But this would be one of the few things Warriors fans would have to cheer for this season, as for the second straight year, they would have the league's worst scoring defense and would in turn finish at 17-65 to again miss the playoffs. But Jamison's breakout year saw him average about 25 points, 8.5 rebounds,
game,
and 1.5 steals per game. After a career year, the Warriors would lock up Jamison long-term, as he would sign a 6-year, $86 million extension. The 01 draft had seen Golden State add some great pieces in Jason Richardson and Troy Murphy in the first round, and then they would scoop up Gilbert Arenas in the second round. And they would have a relatively healthy team this year. However, Blaylock was limited to 35 games, and Arenas would really only start to see playing time once Blaylock went down. After an 8-15 start, there would be yet another coaching change, as Cowens was replaced with Brian Winters. Once again, Jamison would be the team's leading scorer and second leading rebounder behind Fortson. He had seen his numbers drop, but Fortson was a beast on the glass. And offensively, the Warriors were a more capable team. Individually, Jamison would still hit double figures in 76 games, including 4 games with at least 30 and 16 double-doubles. But the Warriors' 7th-ranked scoring offense wasn't the problem. The problem was them turning in their 3rd straight season of allowing the most points in the league, as they would again finish near the bottom at 21-61, with Jamison's season seeing him average about 19.5 points, 7 rebounds, and a steal per game. The Warriors looked different in 03, as they had another new coach in Eric Musselman, and Hughes had left for Washington over the offseason, with Blaylock also being gone, while injuries would derail another season for Fortson. But the Warriors now had a high-scoring trio in Jamison, Arenas, and Richardson, who would combine to average over 56 points per game. And after 2 seasons shooting sub-45%, Jamison would shoot 47% this year, and average the 2nd highest scoring mark of his career. He would hit double figures in 74 games and record 2 games with at least 40, as well as 18 double-doubles. But once again, scoring was not the issue in Golden State, as they were the 2nd highest scoring offense in the league. But defense continued to be their Achilles heel, as they would again allow the most points in the NBA. Their high-scoring offense would definitely help them squeak out some wins, as they would finish with their best record during Jamison's time there by far, at 38-44. But it wouldn't be enough for a playoff berth, as Jamison's year ended with him averaging about 22 points, 7 rebounds, and a steal per game. But that would end up being the end of Jamison's time in Golden State, as he had a new home going into 04.
To Washington?
Being a physician assistant in the Air Force exposes you to a wide variety of medical conditions.
The Warriors had been stuck in neutral since drafting Jamison, and in late July they had lost Arenas to the Wizards. So it seemed like a good time to go in a new direction, as they would send Jamison to the Mavs as part of a busy offseason for Dallas, which saw them also acquire forward Antawn Walker from Boston just days before the 04 season. So now Dallas looked like an offensive juggernaut, as their new acquisitions would join the Mavs' already established trio of Dirk Nowitzki, Michael Finley, and Steve Nash. But head coach Don Nelson would opt to bring a 27-year-old Jamison off the bench as a 6th man, and it turns out Nelly knew what he was doing. Jamison would appear in all 82 games, getting 29 minutes per game, as someone who could sub in for Dirk, but also play on the wing while Dirk was still on the floor, as his size and shooting ability gave the Mavs a lot of offensive versatility. And with him finally not being expected to carry the offense, he recorded the most efficient season of his career by far, which was partially due to the fact that after attempting at least 200 threes in each of the past 3 seasons, he would only shoot 40 this year. And in taking more higher percentage shots, he would shoot a career-high 53.5% from the field, and would still finish as the team's 3rd leading scorer and rebounder. Jamison would hit double figures in 65 games and record 24 games with at least 20, along with 9 double-doubles, as his great bench play would see him take home the 6th Man of the Year award. The Mavs would have the highest scoring...
You lost? You want Eric? You want Landon?
No.
Why you sleeping? Don't lay on Landon's bed. Take your nap.
Alrighty. Oh man, my nose wrong. But this is gonna be a golly. How long this reaction finna be, man? Did I chose the wrong video to react to? Cause it's going on 25 minutes. This is
offense, but they would also allow the 2nd most points. But their high volume scoring would lead to Jamison finally experiencing winning, as they would finish the year at 52-30 and get a first-round matchup with Sacramento. And for the most part, Jamison would have a good playoff debut. He would start by putting up 18 points on 70% shooting in a Game 1 loss, but then follow that up with no points in less than 12 minutes of action, as Dallas fell behind 0-2. He would have his highest scoring output in a Game 3 blowout win when he had 20 points and 9 rebounds. Dallas would then lose Game 4 by 2, as Jamison finished with 10 points and 7 rebounds. And then after putting up 17 points in over 30 minutes of action in Game 5, the Mavs season was over, as they lost by 1, losing the series in 5, with Jamison's year in Dallas seeing him average about 15 points, 6.5 rebounds, and a steal per game. But the Jamison experience would be over after just 1 season, as he would be sent east. Less than a year after he was traded to Dallas, the Mavs shipped him to the Wizards for a package including players and a pick. But this would be a reunion for Jamison, as he was the 3rd consecutive former Warrior that the Wizards had acquired, after they signed Hughes prior to the 03 season and Arenas prior to last season. Jamison would once again be back in a starting role and would finish 3rd on the team in scoring and 1st in rebounding, as he, Hughes, and Arenas combined to average over 67 points per game. Yet these 3 would make up the majority of the Wizards' scoring, so they were taking a lot of shots, and in turn all 3 would shoot below 44%, as Jamison was the best of the bunch at 43.7%. However, he would shoot over 34% from deep on a then career-high 3.1 attempts per game, as after spending his career up to this point playing primarily small forward, he would shift to power forward this season, as his ability to stretch the floor would help open the lane more for Arenas and Hughes. He would appear in 68 games, hitting double figures in 60 of them, while recording 6 games with at least 30 and 24 double-doubles. Prior to the All-Star break, he had been putting up about 21 and 8 per game, and had played in every game, as he would receive his first career All-Star appearance. But he would only appear in 16 more games after the break and deal with knee tendonitis, as his post-All-Star numbers had taken a significant hit. Nonetheless, the Wizards were able to put together a 45-37 record, as Jamison would make his second straight playoff appearance.
Them Wizards jerseys back then, clean. Especially in that gold, that is clean, man.
And one of the deepest playoff runs of his career. He would look good in their first-round series versus Chicago, as he would finish 3rd on the team in scoring and 1st in rebounding, while shooting nearly 47% from the field, and going 8 of 14 from deep across the series. He would put up about 16 points on around 40% shooting over the first 2 games, as the Wizards fell behind 0-2. But then over the next 4, he would average over 19 points on 50% shooting and record a Game 5 double-double, as the Wizards won each game to take the series in 6. The second round brought the heat, and although 3 of the 4 games were decided by 7 points or less, Miami would still sweep Washington. Jamison would average about 19 points per game, including a 32-point Game 2, but his performances would decline as the series went on, as Washington's season had come to an end, and Jamison's year would see him average about 19.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, and a steal per game. But going into the 06 season, the Wizards were going to make a couple of changes, which would kick off one of the more underrated trios of the 2000s.
It's your anniversary today.
You are back.
Hughes had left for Cleveland in the offseason, but the Wizards had pulled off a steal of a trade, as on July 14th, they sent Kwame Brown and Laron Profit to LA for Chucky Atkins and a 25-year-old Caron Butler. It was the same offensive story for the 06 Wizards, as they would have a top 3...
Ain't gonna lie, y'all. This video is too long. I wanted to skip some, I'm sorry.
and a steal.
Boom. Played every single game, 20 points, almost a double-double. 42.
21.5 points, 10 rebounds, and 1.5 steals per game. During the offseason, a now 32-year-old Jamison would sign a 4-year, $60 million extension. And then Washington would give Arenas a massive contract shortly after. And although the Arenas signing would quickly prove to be a mistake, Jamison would put together one of the best years of his career. Butler would give Washington a relatively healthy year, as he would play and start in 67 games. But Stevenson would only manage 32, and center Brendan Haywood would miss almost all of the season. So Jamison and Butler would be the team's top offensive players, combining for over 43 points. with Jamison again leading the team in scoring and rebounding, while shooting nearly 47% from the field and over 35% from deep. He would hit double figures in 79 games, including 7 games with at least 30, and would record 38 double-doubles. But the injuries that the Wizards dealt with would hurt them on both sides of the ball, as they would feature one of the league's worst scoring offenses and defenses. And after 4 straight playoff appearances, they would finish with the second worst record in the league at 19-63, as Jamison's 09 season saw him average about 22 points, 9 rebounds, and a steal per game. 2010 would see the Wizards trio come to an end. They would each start the year as a Wizard. However, Jamison wouldn't see his first action until mid-November, as he was recovering from a shoulder injury. But once he returned, he was doing his usual work, averaging over 20 points and nearly 9 rebounds on about 45% shooting, as he would appear in 41 of the Wizards' first 51 games of the season, and would even have a career performance that LeBron James lacked. However, in a way, Jamison was consolation for the Cavs. They still had a lot of interest in a 33-year-old Jamison, but they were also linked to a trade with Phoenix for their 27-year-old star Amare Stoudemire. But the Suns were insistent on the Cavs' young forward J.J. Hickson being included in the trade, and the Cavs weren't willing to give him up. So they would instead agree to the trade with Washington so that they could retain Hickson. Jamison joined a Cavs team who were coming out of the All-Star break sitting at 43-11 and on a 13-game win streak. Along with James, the Cavs featured point guard Mo Williams as well as forward Anderson Varejao. And although Jamison wasn't giving the same production as he had been in Washington, he would still give the team nearly 16 points in the 25 games he played in, while shooting an efficient 48.5% from the field and over 34% from deep, as he would still hit double figures in 19 of Boston. But Jamison wouldn't have the same success, as he would be held to less than 12 points per game on about 42% shooting, on less than 38% shooting, as the Celtics rebounds and a steal per game. But big changes were coming in the offseason, and this had been Jamison's best chance to win.
IHOP has tons of omelets, so you can have omelets for breakfast, brunch, dinner, or even a griddle of a night snack.
It's kind of big on that.
This was the summer of the decision, as after 7 successful yet frustrating years in Cleveland, LeBron would announce he was taking his talents to South Beach. As a now 34-year-old in Cleveland, LeBron would announce he was taking his talents to South Beach. As a now 34-year-old Jamison would be looked to be the Cavs' top offensive player in 2011. So this would be a long year in Cleveland. Jamison would become their leading scorer, but it wasn't pretty. He would start the year as a 6th man while struggling with knee pain. As in his first 18 games coming off the bench, his stats had taken a big hit. But after re-entering the starting lineup in early December, he would see a major production increase. But without 6.5 rebounds and a steal per game. The Cavs received the first overall pick in the 2011 draft and would select Duke's Kyrie. And although he would win Rookie of the Year, he would only appear in 51 games. He would pair with Jamison, as the two combined for nearly 36 points per game. But Jamison's efficiency in season seeing him average about 17 points, 6.5 rebounds.
As he get older, he's starting to digress.
By acquiring superstar big man Dwight Howard. So these signings, along with still featuring Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol, were supposed to push the Lakers into title contention going into the 2013 season, but it wouldn't work out like that. Nash would fracture his leg in the second game of the year, leading to him missing.
Technically, man, like, it's like a team right here. Straight up disappointment, man.
Nearly 2 months, and overall only appearing in 50 games. While Gasol would be limited to 49 games with a foot injury. And although Howard would have a good season, he wasn't at the level that many were expecting, and he and Kobe wouldn't exactly see eye. With him averaging about 9.5 points, 5 rebounds, and half a steal per game. Jamison wasn't re-signed by the Lakers, but he would stay in LA, as he would sign a 1-year deal. Later, around the trade deadline, he would be traded to Atlanta and then waived immediately after, as his brief season ended and half a steal per game. Jamison wasn't re-signed by the Lakers to deal with the Clippers, but he would be an afterthought in the rotation, only getting about 11 minutes per game, so he didn't have an impact. But he would hit an impressive milestone in a December 11th win over Boston, when a second quarter three-pointer would make him the 39th player in NBA history to reach the 20,000 point mark. But then a few months later, around the trade deadline, he would be traded to Atlanta and then waived immediately and half a steal per game. And that was the end of Antawn Jamison's career. He became one of the best players in North Carolina Tar Heels history, yet his time there seemed to be overlooked. When he got to the league, he was a great scorer, but he was also a tweener, at a time where the big man was still highly valued. It was never really figured out whether small forward or power forward was his best position, as he had his strengths and weaknesses.
A combo forward then, man.
Golden State, Dallas, Washington, or even Cleveland, you could count on Jamison as a reliable scorer. He wasn't flashy with his play, but he was effective and was valued even more for his floor spacing ability. He wasn't the best rebounder, but he could still clean up on the glass, with his biggest downside being his impact on the defensive side of the ball. But Antawn Jamison could score on all three levels, and on the offensive end, he could create a lot of mismatches. He never had any incredible seasons. He was just quietly consistent for over a decade. He also never had any memorable team success, so it's easy for him to slip through the cracks. Yet no matter when or where you played, 20,000 points is a rare accomplishment, and you really can't talk.
Yeah, y'all. Thanks for long video, man. But so Quan. But I'm glad, but yeah, man. I seen the reaction video. You know what I'm saying? Of Antawn Jamison, his career. See y'all later, man. Peace.